Hey everyone, Mitch coming in from the Commander Score Studio. Welcome to the show. So, day 3, Mom spoiler season, March Machine. There we go, March Machine. I almost said Mother Machines. March of the Machine. I think that's it. Spoiler season, day 3, episode 3. If you're keeping track as well, I certainly am. Need the second cup of coffee here in a little bit, but I've got enough energy to do this one right here because my goodness, we've got. Oh, it seems to keep happening. Every set, it's like, hey, green! Look at this awesome card. Probably a new staple, right? And this one, many people are talking about it potentially being a staple, and it very well might be because, yeah, it's quite good. So, let's talk about Ozolith Shattered Spire. Oh, poor Ozolith, it got broken. I don't know if I don't know the story behind the Ozolith. Anyways, let me know in the comments what happened with the Ozolith, but regardless, yeah, the Ozolith is back, but Shattered, a legendary artifact that costs 1 in a green. So again, used to be colorless. Now it is green oriented. If one or more counters to be put, one or more ++1 counters to be put on an artifact or creature you control, that many +1/+1 counters are put on that permanent instead. By paying 1 in green and tapping it, and 1 in a green and tapping it, there we go. Put a +1 counter on target artifact or creature you control, activate as a sorcery, and also scry 2, because this needed that as well. So, okay. This is, of course, very reminiscent of another card that we'll talk about here in a bit. But also, yeah, this impacts not just creatures, but also artifacts too, which is interesting. I mean, very specifically from this set, we'll talk about a new mechanic and why they probably added that to this. But yeah, also things like, vehicles can also get counters on them, though, now, from, or additional counters on them, even though they're not creatures. So, with this, of course, this is just a broad effect that essentially doubles up the, value of every single time you're placing counters on something. I mean, one at a time, I should say. But again, if you've got a way like a Loyal Guardian or whatnot to give a counter to every single one of your creatures, now it's giving 2. And of course, this actually can individually give counters as well. 1 in a green is a little steep for, just giving 1 counter. But again, it's basically giving 2. So again, you can only do that sorcery speed. You can't just save up your mana for it, right before your turn. Unfortunately, but still, you need to get some counters on something, and there are certain permanents that really benefit, from getting counters on them or having greater power. There's certain decks that care about that kind of stuff. Then yeah, you're going to really take advantage of that. And of course, there's a lot of decks out there that absolutely love ++1 counters. I mean, I believe the ++1 counter theme on EDH Rec is like the 4th most popular theme of all time. So yeah, gonna be hard to argue against being like, yeah, this is just another great card to throw in those decks because, hey, you like counters, you like getting even more counters from all your counter effects, great, utilize it. And again, literally, if it's later in the game and you're like, I need removal right now because I'm about to get taken out and this is in your hand, instead of casting, you just be like, yeah, I'll just cycle it away. Oh, okay, Wrath of God, great. Okay, yeah, this is a flexible card again in that, hey, it's not going to be a dead card in your hand. If you need to get rid of it, get rid of it. But yeah, most of the time, get it down early, get an absurd amount of value out of it. I don't know what bad things to say about this card. I mean, it just is a very effective card. Again, it even helps out vehicles. It's interesting. So, regardless, of course, this card is very reminiscent of another card that you might be thinking of right now. Think about it. Unless I already showed on the screen. Regardless, Hardened Scales. Hardened Scales is an enchantment that costs a green. It says if 1 or more +1 counters will be put on a creature you control, that many +1/+1 counters are put on it instead. Again, worded very similarly to the new one. That basically, I think the only difference is basically the new one mentions artifacts and creatures essentially. But yeah, I believe they would work in a very similar way. And of course, Hardened Scales is an incredibly popular card. Again, +1 counter decks are incredibly popular. This is like in 6% of all eligible decks out there. And again, it's pretty specific to +1 counter decks. So that just shows the kind of demand for this card and the amount of players that play +1 counters. And yeah, just a great low to the ground card. Again, this doesn't have any way to actually dish out counters on its own like the new Ozolith card does. It also doesn't have a way to cycle it away in case it's just in your hand late and you don't want it in play and you're like, I need something else. I need Wrath of God. Where are you? Now, this in your hand, it cannot help you. But yes, it is 1 mana cheaper, which does make a difference in certain formats. Obviously, like a modern format might not even consider this brand new card. In Commander's a long, play kind of game. It's like, yeah, whether I get this out on turn 1 or turn 2, it really doesn't matter at all. For the most part. So yeah, again, Commander games typically are like, 8, 9, 10 plus turns essentially. So hey, it costing 2 does not really make that big of a difference. And again, with the amount of flexibility for it to be able to utilize, you know, to actually get more counters on something just by itself can be great. And yeah, be able to cycle it away, a little more flexibility. I'm not saying it's better than Hardened Scales. Again, there's gonna be decks that care about enchantments too. But yeah, it's different. It's good. It's also good. They're kind of on the same playing field, I feel like. And also kind of decks that want one probably want the other. And actually, I guess I should point out one other difference. This is not legendary. The new one is. There aren't too many ways to really copy enchantments. There's a couple. So you can copy Hardened Scales. Do not try to copy the Ozolith Shattered Spire. So you will not be happy with that because the legend rule will apply. That being said, there are certain commanders out there that do care about legendary permanence. So keep that in mind too. Now, next up, let's talk about some interesting synergies that we can, you know, find with this brand new card. I mean, first up, I just want to bring up Fathom Mage again. Talking about cards. I wish Fathom Mage was a commander. That'd be so spicy. Anyways, a 1/1 Evolve Human Wizard that says whenever a +1 counter is put on it, you may draw a card. So obviously this can happen whenever, you know, we get a creature into play that has a greater, power or toughness. So that would just happen, you know, it would trigger. You'd get your Evolve counter, which is just going to be 1 counter on it. But again, you get an additional counter thanks to your Ozolith, so you're going to be drawing 2 cards thanks to that. And then also just, hey, pay 1 and a green, tap, you know, the new Ozolith card, put a counter on this, put another counter on this because of the effect, essentially. And hey, that's draw 2. So yeah, again, make sure you're considering, you know, the effects of this, you know, for characters, for creatures that care about counters, and then also creatures that care about, you know, their power, or, you know, other cards they may have that care about power of a creature. Yeah, there's definitely a lot of applications for something like this. Next up, though, let's talk about some other applications again, outside, you know, just your regular creatures that you're like, oh yeah, I can get counters on them, cool. Yeah, in this brand new set, a new mechanic, I guess, a new card type, kind of. It's really a mechanic, right? Incubate 3. Or just incubate in general. Dramatic Revelation. Target opponent reveals their hand. You may choose a creature or battle card from it. If you do that, player discards that card. If you don't, incubate 3, which means you create an incubator token with 3 +1 counters on it. And to transform this artifact, it transforms into a 0/0 for X and artifact creature. So basically, hey, that's probably really why they actually mentioned those actual having artifacts in there, because it's pretty specific. Yes, vehicles are something that can actually benefit from getting more counters on them when they're not a creature. Other than that, there are really not too many cards out there that are like artifacts that actually care about getting +1 counters on them. These kinds of cards do, though. Obviously, incubator tokens are like creatures to be. They're eventually going to be creatures when you pay that 2 to turn them into a creature. So getting more and more counters on them can be a very effective thing. Obviously, just, you know, in combination with incubators, it's basically like instead of it being incubator 3, it'd be incubate 4, because you basically again say, okay, I got 3 on it. Okay, now I get 1 additional thanks to my Ozolith. So there you go. Next up, we've got Smuggler's Copter. So yeah, just an example of a vehicle. Again, obviously, like I've mentioned, getting additional counters on vehicles typically isn't, you know, what you're going to be doing, because, hey, they'd have to be a creature to do so. You can obviously just crew them, then do that. But this allows you to essentially say, like, I don't really feel like crewing this vehicle this turn, and I want to get more counters on it. So you've got ways to actually get counters on that now. You know, so that's just a small interaction, but one to keep a track of. And also, if you are playing a vehicle tribal deck, yeah, definitely one that you can definitely consider if you've got the color identity that includes the Ozolith. I keep forgetting the last part of this. Ozolith Shattered Spire. There we go. I got it. Look at that. Had to look back to make sure, but I got it. Okay, moving on, though. Let's talk about some commanders that might want to consider this card. And again, there are quite a few. Again, Hardened Scales sees play again in 6% of eligible decks. This one very well might see a similar amount of play, because this is going to be a really good card for a lot of decks out there. First up, Galta Primal Hunger. Not a counters deck typically. I mean, it could be, but the reason I'm bringing this one up is because, well, my build for it at least, and it's also kind of up there in vehicles build as well, is vehicles. So yeah, basically I call it dinos in cars. I think it's really funny. Really fun, but yeah, again, having the ability to actually get counters on vehicles can be surprising. It can definitely help. And yeah, being able to get more counters on Galta even can just be a great thing, obviously. So yeah, definitely a card to consider for a vehicle tribal Galta deck, if you are running one of those like I was. Anyways, next up, we got Attracts the Praetor's Voice, a 4/4 angel that says that has flying, vigilance, that touch lifelink, beginning of end step, proliferate. So proliferating obviously works incredibly well in combination with a card like Hardened Scales, and now this brand new Ozolith. So yeah, again, if you're going with a +1 counters build with Atraxa, just get counters on all your creatures. Great. And there's plenty of ways to do that. Get counters on your creatures, start proliferating, get more and more counters on them. Again, normally with proliferating, that would be getting 1 extra +1 counter on that creature. But now with this brand new Ozolith in play, cool, an additional one on top of that as well. And of course, just by using the activation, from the Ozolith to get more counters on, say, Atraxa, you can turn Atraxa very quickly into like a 1 to 2 shot, or not 1 shot KO. I mean, eventually, maybe, but yeah, like you'll eventually get to a 3-shot KO and a 2-shot KO quite quickly with that proliferating, with that doubling. Again, you're essentially just being like 2 free counters every single end step thanks to that combination. So yeah, a great commander to consider with this new card. Moving on, bestest boy ever, Yoshimaru, ever faithful. I mean, except for my dog Bentley, he's the bestest boy ever. Regardless, Yoshimaru, ever faithful, a 1/1 legend creature dog that costs a white. And I might be thinking, Mitch, that's not the color identity. It has partner, so you can partner it with a creature that does have green and then utilize this fantastic effect. It says whenever another legendary permanent enters the battlefield under your control, put a +1 counter on Yoshimaru, ever faithful. This is perfect. Literally a great turn 1, turn 2 play. Turn 1, Yoshimaru. Turn 2, Ozolith, Shattered Spire. Cool. We're getting that counter. We are also getting a secondary counter on it as well. Every single time a legendary permanent enters the battlefield, and again, that includes lands, and there are plenty of legendary lands out there, you are getting 2 counters on Yoshimaru now, making it into an absolutely unstoppable force. Absolutely lovely. Again, one of the bestest boys out there. Not as good as Bentley, but still a great best boy. Ishai, Ojitai, Dragon Speaker. Again, a partner commander, one that does not inherently have green, but you're probably going to want to get another partner that does have green, because it's a fantastic card to include in a commander like this. And yeah, any of those hardened scales type effects are great with this. 1/1 Flying Bird Monk that says whenever an opponent casts a spell, put a counter on it. Hey, you're in commander, right? You're playing against 3 opponents, right? Yeah, you're going to have a lot of spells being cast from your opponents. So you're going to get this trigger a lot. And you're basically just doubling it up. You're like, oh, okay, you cast a spell. All right, awesome. 2 counters on mine for free. You cast a spell, 2 counters for free. If everyone just casts 1 spell each trigger on the table, that is 6 counters on your commander for free. Of course, yeah, the chances are likely your opponent's going to be casting more than 1 spell in a turn. So this can just get absolutely absurd. Again, like I said with the tracks earlier, this one really can get to a 2-shot, and yes, even a 1-shot incredibly quickly. I mean, also you're in white too, so you probably ways, double strike too. But regardless, yeah, a great card to consider if you've got, the green color identity in there with your partner for Ishai, Ojitai, Dragon Speaker. And then we've got, another example of a commander that's like, hey, I like counters. Awesome. Kyler, Guardian Emissary. You want to play some Human Tribal? This is a great one for Human Tribal. Whenever their human enters the battlefield under control, you get a counter on it. And then other humans you control get a +1/+1 for each counter on Kyler. So essentially, hey, the more counters you get on this, the bigger your army is. And just by getting more and more humans into play, you get more and more counters on this. And by doubling up the effectiveness of that, you are speeding up the process to make this not only into a massive threat, but also your massive army into a massive threat as well. So yeah, you can very easily pump your team incredibly quickly with something like this. So yeah, a great card, especially, in addition to other like, hardened scales types of effects, a great one to consider. Next up, a commander that is really into +1/+1 counters and loves them and is gross and kind of like an Animar in a way, essentially, in the right build. Hamza, Guardian Ration, 5/5. It's going to cost 1 less cast for each creature with a +1 counter on it. So most of the time, you're going to be casting this for just 2 mana, essentially. Creature spells you cast cost 1 less cast for each creature control a +1 counter on it. Yeah, you're going to be able to spread counters out. You're going to be able to get a lot of counters on your creatures. Again, by getting counters on all your creatures, you benefit your team by making them cheaper to cast. And then by getting all counters on your creatures and keep getting more and more counters on them, you're benefiting cards again, or benefiting from card like, the Ozolith, Shattered Spire, to essentially double up the number of counters you're getting on every single one of those. You've got a lot of great counter synergies with a commander like this. And just adding that to kind of double up that synergy can be fantastic. Yeah, overall, a really good card. One that I did not expect to see. I didn't expect to see, basically hardened scales, but Ledger Artifact version. Yeah, slightly more expensive, sure. 2 mana instead of 1. Not a lot. Okay, yeah, in standard, in other formats, sure, that might be a significant difference. In Commander, basically no difference at all. And also on top of that, you're getting extra value from being able to get counters on artifacts. You're also able to activate this, essentially get 2 counters on something. You're also able to cycle it away if it's later in the game and you don't need it. There's a lot of flexibility to it. It's a really good card. It's one that I think is going to see a lot of play. Will it see as much play as Hardened Scales? I'm not sure. Probably around that same amount. Again, decks that are considering Hardened Scales are probably going to be considering this one and being like, yeah, that's great. So, and yeah, Yoshimaru, best boy, absolutely loves this card again. So yeah, it's got Yoshimaru's paw stamp of, is it a stamp of approval? It's like paw of approval. There you go. Regardless, make sure you're staying tuned to this channel for even more exciting quick takes and spoilers coming out. If you haven't seen my most recent episode on Shieldred, my goodness, this card is so mean. This commander is mean. Yeah, you gotta check that one out at some point. So make sure you check that episode out. Also, yeah, comment below with your thoughts on this brand new card. And of course, as always, thanks again and have a good one. This show and episodes like this one are possible thanks to viewers like you. If you're looking for an easy way to help support this show, make sure that you like, share, and subscribe. Also, hit that bell notification icon so you don't miss any new episodes. You can also go check out our playmats and other merchandise at thecommandersquarters.com. We also have a ton of brand new t-shirt designs in stock, so make sure you check out those as well. Another easy way to support this show is with our TCG player affiliate links. So whether you're buying a deck or individual cards, you can use this general link right here or one in the description. And the final way that you can support this show is by supporting us directly by becoming a patron. There are many benefits to being a patron, and I truly couldn't do this without all of their support.